Hello and welcome to another episode of Mindfulness Mondays, a bonus series within the I Will Hold Space for Your Darkness, a first responder mental health podcast series. I'm your host, Erin Jane. Today, I wanted to jump on quickly and share, some thoughts, a bit of a strategy, and pretty simple one. It's really just about having to think about things in a slightly different way, but it's also a practice that is known to have a lot of benefits. And I think it is something that would be important for people in the first responder, realm to just kind of have a think about every now and then. So the practice is called self-compassion. And what do we mean by that, right? So it's, it might be something that you've sort of heard bouncing around about in like the kind of wellness community. And I think we all know what compassion is, as first responders. It's often part of our role while maintaining a high level of professionalism to show compassion to some of the people that we come across, whether it's an assault victim, whether it's someone whose house is burnt down, whether it is a patient that you're working on, or, someone over the phone who's calling 911 for help. So we all know how to show compassion, but a critical thing that we sometimes forget is to have compassion for ourselves, because it's really easy to be cynical. It's really easy to maybe have like a normal, healthy level of cynicism when we join the job, and then 5, 10, 15, 20, 30-year career later, that cynicism rises because we see the worst that humanity has to offer sometimes. And that gets heavy. And sometimes I look at cynicism as, expecting the worst from the outset so that we don't get disappointed or surprised. Or if we do get surprised, it's in a good way, like, oh, that actually wasn't as much of a shit show as I was anticipating. Sometimes that is like a way that our cognition prepares us for the worst things that we see. And in our role as first responders, that's our everyday reality, So the ability to not get too into the realm of cynicism where we just think everything's fucked. I think that's where self-compassion can play a bit of a role. And like I was saying, we can have compassion for others, but learning to not only have it for ourselves, but utilize it as a practice for ourselves has lots of mental health benefits. But it's really, we are, and this isn't just a first responder thing, it's an every single human being thing. We are our own worst critics and judges. And that is a cognitive function that sometimes we always sort of tend to err on a side of negativity instead of positivity. But we are our own worst critics and harshest judges. And I think we all know that. I think, anyone who sort of might look in the mirror and assess their body or something on their face or anything like that, like we've all been like, oh my God, I've got like the biggest mark, or my face, or this is wrong with my body, that's wrong with my body. And other, people turn around and be like, what the fuck are you talking about? I can't even say it. I didn't see it till you pointed it out. We judge ourselves really harshly. And that also goes along with not only like our physical appearance, but in the things that we do, the way that we act, even we judge ourselves like on the way that we think and the way that we feel and our emotions and how we behave. And it's so easy to get kind of stuck in that awful loop of, oh my God, like, I didn't think before I spoke, and then I said something and then I didn't mean it, or it came out harshly, or it hurt that person's feelings. I feel like a bad person, da, 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 da. And then, next thing you know, like you're lying in bed, 20 years down the track thinking about something awful you said, when you were like 16 years old or something like that. And clearly I am like outing myself for being one of those people. But I think just offering ourselves that compassion that we would offer anyone else, the way that I often like to look at it too is if your best mate or BFF, bestie, came to you, right? And was like, oh my God, I did this thing, or I said this thing, or I acted in a certain way, and they were feeling awful about it. You would know exactly the right thing to say to them to alleviate their distress, to take that pain away, to reassure them that one awful thing that they did or said or an action they took or anything like that, one thing does not make them a bad person. So sometimes we have to learn and almost advocate on our own behalf to turn that lens around and give ourselves that level of understanding and compassion, because we equally deserve it as much as anyone else in our lives. So self-compassion is basically it's the practice of being kind to yourself, at its core, and it's showing yourself grace, and it's understanding and recognizing that we all share a common humanity. We can all overthink things. We can all have challenging times. We can all have things that we struggle with. It's actually just part of the human experience is to fuck up occasionally. Like at the crux of it, no one's perfect. No one is perfect. And when we hold ourselves up to a higher standard than we would to the other people that we love, like our kids, perfect example. Our kids are learning and they stuff up all the time, and it doesn't change how much we love them. And we help them learn, and we help them correct, and we help them, gain the knowledge and insight to maybe not make that same mistake again. We don't, divorce or leave our partners just because one day they make a mistake. One day they, I don't know, think of something random, but because they make a mistake. We don't judge them harshly or critically or tell them that they're a bad person simply because they might have made a mistake. And we shouldn't do that to ourselves either. And so the whole notion of self-compassion is, like I said, giving ourselves that grace, understanding that common humanity. There is an experience that we all have, and we all fail sometimes. We all make mistakes. We all have regrets. And it's about just leaving space for it, leaving space in our lives for those mistakes to exist, but not to haunt us. And look, and I know that, and I'm going to discuss this a little briefly on, on the Thin Line Rock Station. If I haven't mentioned it before, I am one of their new hosts on the Thin Line Rock Station. Every Tuesday and Thursday, 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you want to jump on and listen, you can. But I just sort of, going to talk about it very briefly, but this is maybe a little bit more of an in-depth conversation about it. But realistically, self-compassion, and the reason that I wanted to bring it to you today is not only do I think it is an important practice and a tool and a resource that you as a first responder can bring into your life should you choose to, and I think get some benefit out of it. There's a dichotomy involved, because the truth of the matter is that in our roles as first responders, there's something that we have to reconcile, that okay, so we want to offer ourselves grace and understanding if we do make a mistake, but at the same time, in the roles that we perform, sometimes a mistake from us can literally be a life or death decision. And that is difficult to wrestle with. And I'm not saying that it's not. And I'm not saying that I have all the answers. I don't think anyone has any of the answers, because we also don't know what each individual person's experience is knowledge base is, what one, perceives as a success, another one might see as a failure, what one person might see as a mistake, one person might see as a great learning experience. So I know there is a difficult dance when I'm trying to say to you, hey, if you fuck up, it's okay. But equally, in this paradigm, if you fuck up, you might be, the person that, as in, doesn't effectively help someone. And I do get that. Okay. So I'm not sitting here thinking that it doesn't correlate, and it doesn't make it difficult. Perhaps as a first responder, holding grace for ourselves and trying to learn how to have compassion for ourselves maybe is a little bit harder in that respect. But that doesn't mean that it's not worthwhile. It really, really doesn't. So I guess it's something that I felt was really important to share with you, because equally it not only does it help us, there's kind of like three sort of central pillars of self-compassion and being able to practice it. So it's that offering kindness to yourself, and it's like the understanding that we all make mistakes, that everyone is sharing the kind of common human experience. And then it's also, I guess, just being able to hold space in a mindful way, that we can have these thoughts and feelings and, regrets or anything else, but we can hold space for them and we can acknowledge them, but we don't have to let them engulf us. They don't have to define us. One thing that we feel that we do wrong, one mistake we make, one, harsh comment made in anger or in pain, it doesn't define us. It doesn't make us a bad person just because we might do one thing that we regretted. So there's that, but equally, being able to then just hold space for it and just go, yeah, okay, like I did this thing and I don't really like it. I don't like how I responded. I don't like how I acted. I don't like how I spoke to that person. Holding space for it without catastrophizing it is also a practice, because it's really easy to fall down that rabbit hole. And we know those people that, like, every fucking thing that happens, oh my God, it's like the worst, most dramatic thing that could have ever happened. And usually us in, emergency services, we can kind of, judge whether something needs to be escalated, needs to be that dramatic, or it's like, get over yourself a little bit, mate. But being able to hold that space for ourselves, as we may, for other people in a similar circumstance, if they came to us in pain like that, it gives us perspective. It gives us this incredible, almost like being able to put like an independent lens on even our own actions. And that is that sort of mindfulness part of the practice of self-compassion. And I guess it's like being able to acknowledge it. So if you haven't sort of listened to any of the mindfulness content that I've spoken about on here previously, or interviewed guests about it previously, mindfulness, or the practice of mindfulness, is basically just being aware of our moment-to-moment experience and holding space for it without judgment. That's, or without like overly identifying into whatever that thought or feeling is. So being able to have compassion for ourselves, it's all wrapped up together. So it's being able to live in your own skin and be comfortable with it, and know that no matter what you do, you're going to be able to have compassion for yourself. And, whether you get to that point where, I don't know, maybe you forgive yourself for something, I don't know. That's each individual person's journey, I guess. Ugh, I hate that word. But, like, I can share that in my own life, I discovered the practice of self-compassion probably like a few years ago. Definitely since I've had kids. Probably since I had the second, not the first. I don't think I knew about it when I had my first child. It's even something outside of, any first responder stuff. It's something that helped me as a parent, like wholeheartedly and very significantly, forgiving myself for, losing your temper and maybe screaming at your kids like we've all done when we've become angry and overwhelmed and exhausted and all of the things. Being able to take a step back and just take a deep breath and go, okay, I really didn't like how I reacted in that moment. My child is expressing a need or a want or something, and I can recognize that I am sleep deprived. I can recognize that my husband has been away at the firehouse or away hunting or any of the things, and I am burnt out and I am overwhelmed right now. And I responded in a way that is normal and natural for someone who's feeling overwhelmed, but I can probably do a better job at calming myself down because I'm an adult and they're a child. So it kind of allowed me to offer myself grace and just be like, okay, I didn't respond great there. I can recognize that and I'm going to rectify it. I'm going to, sit my kids down and apologize and say, Mum is really sorry. I reacted poorly and I'm sorry about that. Will you accept my apology? Let's get cracking on whatever it is that you wanted, or I can explain better why I said no, or whatever the situation is. And it really just, you can utilize it in every aspect of your life. So whether, you can use the example that I just gave in a parenting way, in a relational way with your partner or your spouse or a friend, when, especially in like a first responder marriage, we don't always show up as our best selves, do we? We don't show up as our best selves to our partners. And we also don't sometimes show up as our best selves at work because we might be burnt out, because we might be exhausted. We might have had a really difficult job or a really difficult shift, and we don't show up as our best selves because we're not our best selves in that moment, because we might be hurting, we might be disassociating, we might be shutting down, we might be in pain, we might be overwhelmed, and our trauma backpack is so fucking heavy that we cannot show up as our best self right now. And having the power to recognize that and offer yourself grace and offer yourself compassion and understanding and go, I clocked that, and I'm going to take a minute. I'm going to recognize it. I'm going to explain to myself or allow myself to recognize that I'm not a bad person because I spoke poorly to my partner, husband, wife, work colleague, member of the public, child, friend. It doesn't make you a bad person. Maybe a bad moment doesn't make you a bad person. So being able to have that grace and compassion and understanding that we all go through shit, every single one of us, but not hold on to it, not make a bad choice or a bad reaction into making you a bad person. You'd be really surprised that how powerful it is, because I only learned about this practice, I'm going to say maybe 3 or 4 years ago. It's so simple that you think it must be bullshit. Quite honestly, you're like, ugh, sounds kind of lame. And I get it. Self-compassion. But it is powerful, and I can attest to it. And like I always tell you guys, I like to walk my talk, and I don't ever offer anything up here to you guys that I haven't tried myself. I haven't researched. I haven't fallen down some kind of rabbit hole, learning about, because I think it's important to offer a vast variety of things to you guys, because what is going to work for one isn't going to work for everyone. But being able just to, like the name of my podcast, I will hold space for your darkness. That's what I offer to others. It's equally as important that I offer that to myself. It is. That I allow myself that grace and that compassion and that understanding, and just be able to go, all right, I didn't handle that great, but I can see that now, and I can learn from it for next time, and it doesn't have to weigh me down. And it gives you that different perspective. So that's kind of what I just wanted to jump on. And, I say quickly. I do try to be quick. I honestly do with these episodes. Apparently, I just, have trouble shutting up. I'm sure if you ever spoke to my husband, he'd probably tell you the same thing. So, take it or leave it for whatever it's worth. There are so many different resources out there. There are, like mindfulness, meditation, self-compassion practices that you can find. Probably one of like the most prominent authors, or basically the person who founded the concept, her name's Kristen Neff. All of the literature sort of, has a lot to do with her in that. And a lot of like research papers too, which I did read, like a whole bunch of them, because the self-compassion as a psychological construct as well was part of the last course study subject that I did. So yeah, there you have it. Just another little option, another little resource that I wanted to share with you today. And if you have something that you would like me to delve down another rabbit hole and maybe come up with some strategies for you, please feel free to reach out. You can catch me on the socials. You can jump on my website. You can send me an email. There are multiple ways to get in contact with me. All of my contact details should be in the show notes. If not, let me know, because it means I stuffed up the producing part of this podcast. But yeah, self-compassion. I think it is powerful. I think it is unique. And I think it could serve you as a first responder. And like I said, I know it's, we do wrestle with the fact that we do have to make life or death decisions. And so a mistake could be a lot more impactful than many other people and in their professional roles. But it does not mean that we are not human. It does not mean that we can't make mistakes. And being able to hold space for it and acknowledge it and forgive ourselves, offer that grace and compassion, in the way. And the main thing that guides me is, if my best friend and, the people that I love most in this world came to me with the thing that I'm experiencing and the thing that I am suffering, I know that when they come to me, I am their biggest fucking cheerleader. And I know how to make them feel better and calm them down and offer them perspective. So it's really just doing that for yourself. And that's pretty much it. All right, guys, I'm going to let you go. Trying to get out of here in under 20 minutes, and I failed. Apologies. Looking forward to releasing another episode on Thursday night, Friday morning with another guest on the usual I'll Hold Space for Your Darkness podcast. However, we are coming to the end of this Mindfulness Mondays episode. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening in. If you have any feedback, shoot it my way. And in the meantime, stay safe and let me listen in a way you've never been heard. Cheers, guys.